Hello and welcome to the Middle East Report. In this programme today we'll be discussing some of the remarkable achievements that Israel has made in the realm of medical science and the contribution that this small little nation has made to the world. Warm welcome to the programme. And to talk about the advancement in medical science in Israel, I'm joined by a graduate of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Dr. Rilwan Raji from Nigeria. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And Raji, can you tell our guests, because I mean, we very much like the costume you're wearing, what life was like for you growing up in Nigeria?
Growing up in Nigeria was not the rosiest, if I could use that term. I grew up as the last child in a family of four, three other siblings, one man, two other women. Started my life in elementary school and proceeded to a government high school, after which I secured an admission to study medicine, also at the government school, what we could call the Harvard of Nigeria. But growing up as a young doctor, I faced the challenge that many of my colleagues face back home, where we have a lot of communicable disease challenges. And so we always have that conflict of what kind of doctor do you want to become? Is it the one that prevents the diseases from occurring, or the one that would rather the disease occur and then you try to solve or cure it? And over time, studies have shown that in the developing world, like where I came from, we can't really afford the cost of curative medicine. And the best way to go is prevention. Like, it's cheaper, it's safer, and it reaches a much larger population. So there and then I decided that, I should do public health.
Excellent. So what is it about the medical field that attracted you to want to be a doctor?
So I had a younger brother. Okay, maybe I should say we were five. I had a much younger brother who mysteriously died at about 4 or 5 years of age. But the striking thing about the young man was that he was never able to walk. The age where all of us started working, or kids of his age were working, he wouldn't work. And it was one big curiosity, even as a little kid then. I didn't know what could be wrong. And I remember some time ago when I was fit for college, I was discussing with my mother. And she told me about maybe some drugs that she wasn't supposed to take in pregnancy, and she took, and all of that. And while I was in while I was in high school, I came to realize that he probably died of something related to a congenital malformation. So during the development process of his brain, I think whatever my mom took must have affected that development, and that was why eventually the young man died. So that was the first curiosity, there must be something about science that, could explain how a young child, because of a mistake of the mother, could never live. And I think that was when I decided that I wanted to know more about medicine and become a doctor.
Excellent. What do you say that the challenges are, particularly in Nigeria and maybe other African states, in terms of healthcare? Because obviously we're very privileged in this country to have a national healthcare. What's the healthcare situation like?
Absolutely. In Nigeria we have a health insurance system, but it's not universal, right? Only a fraction of the population who are in the labor market, specifically those that work with the government, have access to healthcare. And this is not even up to half of the population. So you have a larger chunk of the populace who do not have paid jobs, do not work with government, artisans, unemployed, and they really don't have any access to healthcare. So be it preventive medicine, be it curative medicine, a lot of Nigerians have to pay out of pocket.
And what was it, Rilwan, that attracted you to go and study medical science in Israel?
So, very funny, very interesting rather. When I made up my mind, a few years as a GP, I had this uncle who was working with the World Health Organization back home. And he was in HIV, and he would always call me to go volunteer with him, World AIDS Day every December 1. And he would tell me about, the importance of preventive medicine. A lot of people ashamed to open up their status because of stigmatization and all of that. And at one of those events, public events where we spoke to people in the community, I just felt the impact of primary health care, like public health. Like, you're reaching more people. I mean, before then, I was just a one-patient doctor. I see one patient, I treat the problem, and everybody goes home. But now you're reaching a bigger population. You're impacting more lives. And I said, this is what I want to do. So with his influence and a couple of friends, I started to volunteer with the World Health Organization in the northern part of the country, where we had loads of communicable diseases, specifically on polio. All right, so polio is a disease that affects children, paralyzes them temporarily, most times permanently, and they can't really attain their potential, so they can't walk. And so a lot of my work I share with my friends, and one of my friends called me one day and said, you're working with the WHO. Where did you do your master's degree? And I'm like, well, not yet. I don't have a master's degree yet. And she was like, why don't you come to Israel? I mean, I just finished the program. I'm like, Israel? What do you mean Israel? Come on. She said, nah, you have to come to Israel. It's fun. And of course, there was scholarship, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll think about it. But I have to discuss with my parents. And when I made up my mind I was going to come to Israel, my first stumbling block was my mother, because where I was working in northern Nigeria was not very safe, right? It's the typical climate of what we watch on TV about Israel, the Middle East, and all of that. And so she had always prayed that, one day, my son, can you come to the south and just leave the north? And then I tried to call to her one day and then, Mom, guess what? I'm leaving the north. And she's like, hallelujah, because she's Christian and fantastic. And she asked, so where are you coming in the south? I'm like, no, Mom, I'm leaving the country. Fantastic. Tell me it's the US or the UK. I said, no, Mama, I'm going to Israel. And then the room was quiet. Israel? Is it not that country we watch in the news in the Middle East with so much war and quarrel and insecurity? And she cried a lot, reported to my father, did everything to make sure I wouldn't go. And my father told her, you know what, he's a young man, let him go and see.
Excellent.
And that was exactly how I made that decision to go to Israel.
And Yeah, you obviously, like your mother, had preconceived ideas of what Israel would be like, and sadly, our media play a huge role in saying that it's a conflict zone when
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel much safer walking down the streets of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv than I do the streets of London or another
Absolutely.
major city in this
Absolutely.
country.
Absolutely.
Unless you go to the real hot spots, which you're not going to do,
Yeah.
you don't really experience anything.
Absolutely.
But what was it like then, being in Jerusalem and studying at the Hebrew University?
Very, very. It was eye-opening. It was, and you see, there are some things you hear and you read and like quotes, and you're like, what does it really mean? But then when you experience it, it was a classical example of never judge a book, by the cover, right?
Absolutely.
Never judge a place by what you hear or read. You have to be there, you know. I must say that I was very scared on the first day I got to Israel because I thought I was in Lagos, right, where we leave our luggage and all that. And so I got to my school, and the coordinator didn't show up on time. And then I communicated with someone that I have to leave my bags here. I need to get the coordinator. And the moment I got to the faculty, Rilwan, welcome, where's your luggage? I said, I left it just down the block. And I saw one of the faculty members, and they were running, and I was like, what's going on here? They were running towards where I put my bag, And I'm like, what's the problem? And then by the time we got there, the red tapes
of
the Hollywood movies were around my bags, and they were just, and I'm like, what's going on? Of course, later I found out that it was part of how the system operates, getting to not taking chances with what people could do. But aside from that, which I got used to, it was a very good experience. It was for me personally and my family. It was awesome, right? And I had a double degree, right? I was not only a master's degree holder in public health, I was a Jerusalem pilgrim. And the funniest part of it was that my mom called me like within the first 2 weeks or something that, where am I? She's watching CNN and it's all bloody. And unfortunately, she called me at the time we're having a party, right? And I'm like, Mom, you're disturbing my party. I'm having fun. And she's like, a party? But the place is, Mom, this place is safer than Lagos. And then over time, she got used to it. And she was the first person asking that when was graduation. She came for my graduation with my father. And, the school was generous enough for her to go through the holy sites, being a Christian that she is. And she also became a Jerusalem pilgrim because her son had the opportunity of having
Fantastic.
a medical education in Israel. So, I mean, I don't know if that sums up the experience, but I mean, just so many good things. It was awesome.
And that's actually one of my very first experiences of Israel was this was like 21 years ago. Flying into Tel Aviv, waiting there because it was a night flight, waiting there till the morning, getting a Sharut, that taxi all the way up from Tel Aviv, all the way to Jerusalem, then seeing those views on Mount Scopus of views around Jerusalem. Absolutely kind of breathtaking. And it's a very special university. But can you tell us about the actual course that you decided to do your MA?
Yeah, so it was a master's in public health. It's a degree program done in many universities in the world. But you see what makes it unique in the School of Public Health, the Brown School of Public Health and Community Medicine, is that it's truly an international program. I mean, I tell my colleagues back home, the people that were in my cohort, that's my classmates, and everybody's surprised. We were from 19 different countries across all the continents of the world except Australia, We had Nepalese, we had Indians, we had Ghanaians, we had Cameroonians, we had Nigerians, we had Americans, we had Palestinians, we had Israel, and that was another eye-opener, Palestinians. 3 of them were in my cohort, And it was amazing, from all over the world, Colombia, name it, any continent. And it was a rigorous program, tailored to the public health challenges of where we come from. Of course, I was gracious, like many of us, being funded by the PS Foundation, which is a scholarship, a foundation that sponsors candidates from developing countries like mine, coordinated by the British Friends of the Hebrew University. I'm extremely grateful to them because without them, this opportunity would not come. I mean, I'd gotten admissions in about 3 universities in the US, but because of my background, the humble place I come from, I couldn't afford it, you know. So it was very spot on for me because as at the time I went for my master's, my field experience with WHO in Nigeria required the kind of course curriculum, epidemiology, biostatistics, and a very unique course. So they call it the community-oriented primary care, which we call the COPC, which was well tailored to addressing primary health care and public health needs in developing world. So it was spot on for me, and I may love to share that because I had a constant communication back home, because one of the goals of the program is not for students to come and remain in Israel or go to America. No, you had to go back home and now transfer that knowledge to solving public health problems back in your country. So I was communicating back home, and when I sent some of my completed course manuscripts and all of that back home, I was already penciled for a job. And I got a senior position as a cluster consultant with the WHO 1 week before the graduation ceremony. So for me, it was an instant impact. The course curriculum, very intense. I have to confess, very intense. Many schools do it for about 2 years or 1.5. We did it for about 11 months, but it was tailored to our public health problems, and that's what I've been doing since I left in 2013, and it's been making huge impact. So direct impact on my life and my family, but the bigger impact in my community. Because at many international fora, they would ask me, where did you school? And the moment I tell them Israel Hebrew University, you could see that surprise on people's face. Wow, you probably need to go do something in that school, because if they thought what you're putting into this program, then it's worth finding out what's going on there.
Fantastic. So should we have a look now at some of the incredible work being carried out by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and its global impact?
What we do here at the Hebrew University is try to look at global problems.
The Center for Bioengineering is a unique multidisciplinary program that aims to take biologists and engineers and teach them how to think like multidisciplinary scientists and innovators. In my own laboratory, we are very excited to produce projects and devices we call human on a chip. What we are aiming to produce are really small devices that will have multiple organs actually grown on them. And these are going to be organs produced with human cells in human genetics, and they are connected with microscopic channels that will mimic human physiology. And in that way, I can do experiments on a chip instead of doing experiments on an animal.
Mobileye. This is literally a technology that saves lives. This is a gadget that's installed in your vehicle that can assess if you're coming too close to a vehicle in front of you, if you're about to hit a pedestrian, if you're swaying between the lanes, etc. It literally saves lives all over the world. And when I mean all over the world, I mean that 85% of the world market of accidents avoidance of collisions is Mobileye. IMRIC is clearly one of the jewels in our crown when you look at research that takes place there. This is truly one of the centers of excellence in the Hebrew University.
We're studying how these cells kill tumor cells, how they limit cancer, and what we're hoping to achieve is maybe a way to enrich these cells and to use them as an anti-tumor therapy. These cells that are naturally found in our body have the capacity to attack tumor cells and kill them, and giving us another tool to treat cancer, because until now cancer has been treated with chemotherapy that has a lot of side effects. These cells are naturally occurring and can be utilized as another way to treat cancer.
One of the stars of our Brain Research Center is Chagai Bergman. He's trying to alleviate Parkinson's.
The unique thing is the understanding that the brain is a computational device that uses electrical activity to make computation.
Chagai Bergman is one of the true leaders in deep brain stimulation. When you see two different videos, one before and the other after the closed-loop deep brain stimulations, you cannot believe that these two individuals are one and the same.
I think there is a huge importance to cure Alzheimer's, or at least to delay its progression. It's greatly important to provide people with not only long life, but healthy life. And we ask whether, by selective manipulation of the aging process, we can delay the onset of Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative disorders, or maybe even prevent them.
When you look around you in Israel, people immediately notice our beautiful blue skies. Well, that comes with a price. We're short on water. And the problem is that we also want to grow our own food. And water is a scarce resource, not just in Israel, actually most of the world. So what we do in Israel is we reclaim our water.
One of the resources of water today is wastewater, because the natural water resources are not sufficient anymore. The wastewater is collected from the different towns and cities and neighborhoods to a major treatment facility where it undergoes physical and biological treatment. Then the wastewater is being further treated by good filtration, and then it can be distributed to the fields for irrigation.
You want to make sure that it's used sensibly. You don't want the water to evaporate. You want the water to reach the plants. And that's why Israel is, of course, known as the home for drip irrigation. So what we're doing is, first of all, we're squeezing every drop of water that you can out of our sources, and then we're making sure that every drop of water reaches precisely the place where it needs to with maximum efficiency. Because the problems that we try to tackle are global problems, you need a global solution. So if we can gain access to knowledge and expertise, good things will happen.
Just shows you some of the incredible work being carried out by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and the big impact that Israeli scientists are making around the world. Now, seeing that video presentation there, Rilwan, just really shows there's something very special about Israel. Very special because, you know, in terms of their people and the expertise in so many different fields in science and technology. But what was it like to actually work and being taught by some of these incredible professors in medical research and knowledge?
Yeah, so one of the strengths of the teachers at the Hebrew University School of Public Health is that they, because we're not a very large group, if you like, they actually prune down the knowledge to each student. And they made sure that aside from most of the theoretical coursework in the first semester, the second semester was more of hands-on. So I talked about the community-oriented primary care, where we had the faculty, the class is divided into smaller groups, and then you have faculty members act as mentors that help students to stimulate ideas amongst them, Of course, link the weak ones to the strong ones. And then at the end of the day, everybody works as a team and learns together. Another amazing thing that the public health program does, and of course with the support of the Peers Foundation, is that we also learn from alumni, right? These are people who have left the Hebrew U, and so there's this powerful social networking. While we were students, we had graduates that were in the school, even when some of us were not born, and they came around. They were able to share their experience with us. Some of them already faculty members in different parts of their world, and it was interesting and eye-opening that people you referenced in your articles and your coursework were now right before you, and yeah. So basically, it's not just the classroom. It goes out of the classroom, and supports each of the graduate student on a personal level.
Yeah. And what did you learn about living in Israel, and what do you learn about Israelis?
Very interesting. So there's this this popular statement that Israel is very complex, right? And I also come from a very complex setting. I have a mixed family, right? My father is Muslim, my mother is Christian. I come from a southern, majorly southern Christian part of Nigeria, but then we have a predominant northern Muslim Nigeria. So I grew up in the south, but I've always been doing my public health work in the north, where we have all the burden in the country. So when I'm back home in the south, I could fit in because I am from the south, right? Even though I'm not Christian. When I'm up north, I could also fit in because I'm a Muslim, but I'm not a northerner. So that complexity of my life, when they tell me Israel is complex, was like a challenge to me. I wanted to see how it was. And it was really fun. At times, you aside from the issue I have with the issue I had with the security problem, at times the language, Hebrew, because the program was international, it was in English, was a little bit of challenge. But what I discovered was that the moment you interact, even at the Sherut and the trams, with an average Israeli, and they find out that you're schooling in Israel, I mean, some are ignorant about that fact. They don't even know that, their country is doing so much, to the world. And they're like, are you serious? You're really studying in Israel? And then they just calm down. They're more, receptive and more impressed with what they were doing. So for me, it was a beautiful experience. We interacted socially because we had a couple of friends from the from the Israeli program, because the public health program is Israel in English. And through them, we had some contacts with the International Women's Conference in Israel at that time. So generally, it was pretty encouraging, right? The people are fascinating. They encourage you when you miss your way or you don't understand how to relate with some that don't speak English. And generally, it's something I always recommend. And that's why I go back, actually, because I've been back in Israel twice since I graduated in 2013.
It's like that. Israel's like a magnet. Once you go once,
Exactly.
it always draws you back. But there is something about the Jewish character that actually wants to help the world. And the fact that if we see, for example, a major earthquake or a major national disaster zone, it's the Israelis that are always first on the scene. Did you experience that when you were in Israel?
Yeah, Tikkun Olam, right? That's what it's called, like repair the world. While I was there, there were a few times where there was the slight tension. I remember the first time we didn't know what it meant. when we heard the siren, you know. And funny enough, we did what we're not supposed to do. You know, we ran to the windows to see where the noise was coming from before we knew that, okay, there were bunkers around, and then we were told which of the bunkers to go to. But aside from that, we didn't really during my stay in Israel have major challenges that required us to experience what you may have asked. But in a general sense, it's what we're used to. I mean, what we had been briefed about, and lucky enough, we didn't have much of these issues while I was there.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be peaceful, other times something can flare up at a moment's kind of notice and what have you, and then obviously things change, and you know, the nation then goes on a different footing. But in terms of Israel's achievements in medicine, can you share with us from your own experience how Israel's leading the way in terms of medical development and technology?
Well, I can only speak from my own field of study, which is public health. I know for a fact that the Israelis are involved in a lot of public health research work related to communicable and non-communicable diseases in Africa. They are also involved in encouraging people that are doing amazing things back home to come and share their experience. I had been privileged to attend the 6th International Health Policy Conference in Jerusalem. That was in May last year, where we're looking at public health from how we started, from local to global patterns and back again. And they invited keynote speakers from practically every part of the world, right? And research and development is very key. And where the knowledge, I mean, they lead in terms of knowledge, right? So I learned a lot. I was also a presenter at that conference, and it created a forum where I actually met people where we could actually work on collaborative studies that could improve the health and well-being of our people back home in Nigeria. So for me, that's one thing I could say, that when it comes to there's the Israeli Institute of Health Policy and Research that sends most of its publications out on a monthly basis, and every 2 years the International Health Policy Conference encourages researchers from all over the world, including Africa, to come and share, and everybody learns the latest technologies and how it can help the world.
Fantastic. So let's have a look now at some of the achievements that Israel's made in terms of advancing medical technology that benefits the world.
Not a week goes by, I don't see another woman under 40, no family history, didn't do anything to give themselves risks, walks in and their life is changed forever. And to really move the needle, we need to take some bold new approaches to trying to understand disease processes, diagnose them earlier, and really take some brand new approaches to treating them. And I think not enough emphasis has been placed on the field of nanomedicine, and not enough people have paid attention to its real potential.
Cancer, heart disease, neurological disorders. Nanotechnology and nanomedicine hold the promise of new breakthroughs in the diagnosis and treatment of some of the world's most devastating diseases.
Nanotechnology is about manipulating and controlling materials at the nanoscale, meaning at the level of the individual atom.
I'll give you a simple example how small atoms are. If you take a size of an apple and you compare that to Earth, That's the same ratio as an atom to an apple, just to give you how small these things are.
Nanomedicine is how we take these very small structures and we apply them to either cure or detect diseases. So it could be a little bead which we put drugs inside and inject into the body, and that bead will protect the drug from being attacked by your body. It can also make very, very small channels on silicon chips, and we can sort blood cells out on a little silicon chip. We can put a whole lab and put it on a chip.
Two leaders in medicine and science, Cleveland Clinic and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, are joining forces in creating the Virtual Center for Transformative Nanomedicine, with the goal of harnessing the power of nanoscience to revolutionize healthcare.
Here you have two entities, world leaders in their particular area, the Hebrew University in the area of nanomedicine, nanodrug delivery, and the Cleveland Clinic, one of the premier medical centers in the world, are joining forces to synergistically try to combat some of the problems that have eluded us.
And what I saw there was a very engaged group of people who are working in world-class facilities. Facilities for nanotechnology, particle characterization, pharmacology are world-class and beyond compare.
Hebrew University is well recognized in the world and one of the institutions that put in the market more than 7 drugs. Out of the 7 drugs, 2 were really nanomedicine.
Cleveland Clinic is just amazing in their capabilities of translating things. And I see this as a perfect fit for taking things that are preclinical and helping them reach the clinic.
A partnership that will advance innovations from the lab to the patient's bedside in a way that has never been done before.
If we can identify the cohort of patients using sensors and saliva tests or urine tests that put people at elevated risk, then we can begin to look much more closely at them. But to make all that happen, we need new sensors, new devices, new ways to identify markers and then intervene to make their lives better.
From new drug systems to new ways to screen for disease, the possibilities in nanomedicine in this new collaboration are endless.
Our Hebrew University scientists are blazing new trials in nanomedicine, and our friends at Cleveland Clinic share the spirit of innovation. Our historical partnership will help to heal the world and enhance patient care in visionary and effective ways.
This is a global partnership that has the potential to impact patients around the world. We have the ability to change how to deliver health care for future generations, and we hope you'll join us.
The thing that excites me the most, I think, is the opportunities. We're on the ground floor here. We're one of the first centers like this to really have this program going.
Collaboration today is required because the challenges that we face are huge. The challenges that we face require different disciplines, not only in a single institute, but often between different institutes, and that's why we're so happy to partner with the Cleveland Clinic.
I think the promise for this is once we get it right, we can really change things forever.
Amazing to see the difference that Israel is making in the world. Rilwan, I have to ask you, what do you feel about universities, particularly in kind of Western Europe, when they decide to boycott Israeli academics and lecturers, and then they decide to boycott Israeli institutions as well, like the Hebrew University?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, but if I have to judge with my own experience, I think it's probably a mistake, because from my experience and with what I learned and what I'm giving back to my community, I think there's a lot to learn and to gain from the expertise of the Hebrew University. It's changed my life, it's changed my community, and of course, it continues to change the world.
So can you share with us in a kind of practical way the impact that the knowledge that you've learned from attending the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and how you've been able to apply that back home in northern Nigeria?
Absolutely. So basically, the field that I work is public health. Nigeria it's one of only 3 polio endemic countries, aside from Pakistan and Afghanistan. So we, as a country, still have problem with communicable diseases. So my work with the WHO in Nigeria basically is to, with the bigger goal of polio eradication, ensure that we reach children with potent vaccines. We have effective surveillance systems to detect disease outbreaks on time and mount a response, so that children can actually live to experience their full potential. And like I told you earlier, the community-oriented primary care model, which is a well-structured process of community diagnosis. What is the problem? How do you address them? What solution can you bring to the table? Is one pride model of the Brown School of Public Health of the Hebrew University. And taking that knowledge back home and applying it practically in the field has been able to reduce the polio burden in Nigeria. And except for the insecurity of the Boko Haram, which we had, Nigeria should have been a polio-free country by 2017 July. However, with the new government and the efforts to thwart insecurity, we are reaching more children in the former strongholds, and we're gradually bringing down the burden of vaccine-preventable diseases. And by 2019, I would be proud to call the Hebrew University and say the knowledge I gained has put me as part of those that have eradicated polio from Nigeria and Africa.
Fantastic. You're an inspiration, really are.
Thank you so much.
And also, when it comes to other members of your community in Nigeria, they must look up to you and think, you know, here you are, you've come from a humble background, you graduated as a doctor, you've got your MA from the University of Jerusalem, you're now pioneering public health, particularly polio vaccinations in Nigeria, and making a huge difference. Are you then able to encourage the next generation to go to the Hebrew University and to learn from Israel?
Absolutely. In fact, now, if you ask the faculty the question, I mean, we have alumni conference, so they usually give us the feedback. Part of the thing about the Hebrew University School of Public Health program is that, you know, they encourage us to recommend people that are also as passionate as we are and that will give back. And they always tell us that, look, it's not the number of people that are interested in coming to the Hebrew University that is the case now. It's the dilemma the faculty faces in who to select based on the availability of funds. So absolutely, it's an eye-opener. My experience back home has changed the narrative. A lot of people, including myself, before going to Israel, would have thought nothing happens in Israel except a crisis in the Middle East. And seeing me going there, coming back, and doing this work, and I go frequently, I've been there in the last, since I graduated, I think about twice, going back to share my experience with an international audience has totally solidified the confidence of the folks back home. And this year alone, I had about almost 5 to 6 people who wanted me to recommend them for the program at the Hebrew University.
Amazing. That's incredible. And Rilwan, have you had a chance to talk about with fellow medical professionals in Israel, the pioneering work that you've been able to apply back home in Nigeria to help wipe out polio?
Absolutely.
And what's their response been?
Absolutely. Like I told you, the alumni conference was one which we did, and the School of Public Health is unique, right? So the alumni is not just coming to Jerusalem; they actually bring Jerusalem to Africa. So we've had 2 of them, one in East Africa in Kenya, the other one in February last year in my own country and my own home state. And these are fora where people, alumni alumni and even other researchers are gathered together. And then it's a pride to the college that we share our experience to that international audience. And yes, we've done that. And of course, the reception is amazing, and people are looking forward to that news of the day Nigeria is no longer a polio-free country.
Absolutely.
Polio country.
You have to let me know when that happens, because I definitely think that's something to definitely celebrate. Because also I have a passion for Nigeria. I've done quite a few programs on Nigeria as well, and got Nigerian friends. So what you're doing there is so important to your nation and your country, which is a kind of powerhouse in Africa. But I mean, if you look at, for example, in Israel, they've managed to make the desert blossom. They've done incredible pioneering work in terms of agriculture, in terms of watering the desert and getting water just from the air and what have you. So what's the impact you think through the course you've done at the Hebrew University in terms of building relations between Nigeria and Israel on a diplomatic front?
On a diplomatic front, again, it's still related to that idea of having a healthy alumni relationship. On the first hand, my visit to the UK is also a way of building relationships. The British Friends of the Hebrew University, as part of their own mandate to promote what the Hebrew University does in Israel, gave me the opportunity to share my work experience. And even yesterday, right, I was in a private dinner with the Israeli ambassador to the UK, and he could feel it firsthand and learn about how much of an education in Israel was having an impact in my country. Before I also leave, there's an opportunity for the Nigerian High Commissioner, who would also be in a particular gathering, where I would also be attending, so that the ambassador himself from my country actually hears from the horse's mouth. And this is one of many ways. In February last year, the alumni conference that held in my country and my university had in attendance the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria. And it also had the Nigeria's Honorable Minister of Health. And there was an interaction. And so these are all ways where a program that looks as simple as just allowing people from Nigeria to school in Israel is promoting healthy relationship at the diplomatic level.
Excellent. And Rilwan, you also bring encouragement here to the Jewish community as well, because I know that you've had and you will have speaking engagements. I know that you spoke at a Jewish school this morning. What's the reaction from the Jewish community after you've told them about the work that you're doing in Nigeria, thanks to Israeli know-how?
Fascinating. Initially, they seem surprised. I mean, they're not aware that so much is happening by their own country and institution, and then at the end of the day, they feel proud. And I think they should be. It's worth being proud of that. Aside all of the fake news, if I could use that term, there's real news of something as good as helping the world and helping people like me from humble backgrounds, developing countries, to acquire skills that not only changes my community, but actually changes the world.
Amazing. Absolutely, truly amazing. We're down to the last 4 minutes of the program. Rilwan, what are the challenges for you? What are your aspirations in the near future? Obviously, you're still a young man, and you've got many decades ahead of you in this field. So what's the next challenge?
So like I told you, the first goal is we need to get Africa out of polio. We want to move within trends of the world. The world is moving from communicable to non-communicable diseases, so we need to be a polio-free country. The last case was last year. We're hoping that by 2019 we'll achieve that. I was also opportune to be nominated for a doctorate, a PhD, in public health from the same Hebrew University. I hope to pursue that so that in the long term I could give back, you know, to my community in a classroom setting, you know, with a PhD, also train the new set of public health leaders, having acquired academic knowledge from Israel, field experience from Nigeria, and then we bring all of these together and, you know, become a public health expert of international repute across the world, sharing my experience and my knowledge to the next generation, and making the world a better place. Tikkun Olam.
Superb, superb. And would you ever consider, you know, maybe in the near future going for the job of Nigeria's health minister? Is that something that you could aspire to becoming?
Most definitely. I mean, who doesn't want to be a minister? Yeah, but yeah, it's something I strongly think about. It's something I consider. You know, but you know, let the work speak for you, you know, and then
absolutely
probably comes to play.
That definitely. And also, we're down to the last 2 minutes program. So, have you got a message for our viewers about your experience that you've had at the Hebrew University, and you know, what they could learn?
Yeah. So basically, what can I say? That never judge a book by its cover. I think Israelis should be proud of themselves. There's a lot of things happening. Unfortunately, the kind of world we live in today, maybe not much coverage of some of these good things. And Israel is one country that, for me as a person, is remarkable. You talked about the desert. In my country, in Nigeria, we have abundance of natural resources. And it's still very, very hard for us to, you know, to get our people to the promised land. And Israel is a small country, no resources, so much ingenuity. For me, it's an inspiration to the world. And I think Israelis should forever be proud of themselves and be proud of what they're doing to so many people and impacting lives around the world.
Amazing. Rilwan, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on today's Middle East Report. It's been fascinating to hear you talk about your experiences with the Hebrew University and also how you've applied that knowledge back home in Nigeria, and that you're an inspiration. I'm sure you have a big impact on the Nigerian Christian community here as well. So thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
And just want to thank you for watching today's Middle East Report. We can learn so much from Israel, and Israel really is a beacon of light in the world. And this is just one aspect of how Israel is helping to combat polio, particularly in Nigeria. So thank you for watching today's program. I'm going to leave you with this beautiful song that looks at the beauty that is the nation of Israel.